after reading this expression on the board, you find it difficult to pin down the right option that will fill out this expression, then this class is for you. Today, our focus is going to be on what is called mandative subjunctive concord. Mandative subjunctive concord. This is the concept we're going to be talking about in this class. And notice something here that from the wording, this wording, that mandative subjunctive concord derives from a type of concord known as subjunctives. Subjunctives. If you don't know what subjunctives are, I implore you to go check out a video I made previously on this concept. But just to recall, subjunctives are forms of verbs that deal with unreal situations. Situations that talk about imaginations, that talk about wishes, that talk about possibilities, impossibilities, or regrets. And one important thing to note about subjunctives is that the verb in a subjunctive expression cannot be in the present tense. The verb can either be in the past or in the past participle. That is all you need to know about subjunctives, right? Like I said, there's a video on this channel. Now, coming to mandative subjunctives. The difference between mandative subjunctive concord and subjunctives is that mandative subjunctive concord will always have its verb. This concept will always have its verb in the base form. The base form of verb is what we use at the mandative subjunctive level. For subjunctives in general, subjunctive expressions, the verb will always be either in the past or in the past participle. But for mandative subjunctive concord, your verb will always be at the base form. And of course, I want to assume that you know what base verbs mean. Verbs in the base forms are those that don't have s, that don't have es, that don't have res. So that is basically what mandative subjunctive concord is about. Let's talk about the rule. The rule guiding mandative subjunctive concord simply dictates that when you have a main clause that is followed by a that subordinate clause. I take that again. When you have a main clause, an independent clause that is followed by a that subordinate clause. So when you have a main clause that is followed by a that subordinate clause, and the main clause talks about necessity, the main clause talks about request, the main clause talks about recommendation, the main clause talks about command, the main clause talks about decision making. Okay, I talked about necessity, recommendation, demand, decisions, or commands. If the main clause talks about all of those things, or just one of those things, or in fact, if it talks about prayers, the rule states that if that situation happens, the verb in the that clause will always be at the base level, regardless of whether the subject in the that subordinate clause is singular or plural. That seems to be a lot already, but I'm going to write on the board just so we can break things down and you can understand better. The rule states that the rule states that when you have a main clause that is followed, oh my goodness, by a that, there is that subordinate, this is a hyphen, subordinate clause, and the main clause expresses, let's say command, comma, request, suggestions, recommendation, still the same thing as suggestion, recommendation, let's say prayers, decisions, etc. Right? The verb, can I check if I'm still within frame? Okay, I'm almost out of frame. Oh my goodness, almost out of frame. It's okay. It's okay. All right. The verb in the subordinate clause, must always be in the base form. In the base form. So let me take that again. The rule states that when you have a main clause that is followed by a that subordinate clause, and the main clause expresses command, request, suggestions, recommendations, necessity, prayers, decisions, etc. The verb in the subordinate clause. The subordinate clause in this case is the subjunctive clause. The verb in the subordinate clause must always be in the base form. And I've explained what the base forms of verb mean. A verb in its base form is a verb that doesn't have es, no s, no ies. Okay. So let's use this explanation, this definition, this rule to answer the question here. The expression is, they recommended that he dash his appointment as commissioner. And we have four options here: resigns, resign, resigned, does resign. So what should be the right answer here? They recommended. Now, this here is the main clause. They recommended. They decided. They prayed. They suggested, right? So they recommended, this is the main clause. And here is where the that subordinate clause begins from. That he dash his appointment as commissioner. That he dash his appointment as commissioner. Here is the main clause. The main clause, they recommended. What did they recommend? That he dash his appointment as commissioner. Right here, the rule says that when you have this main clause, maybe the boys prayed, the committee recommended, the student recommended, the student decided, the student prayed, the congregation prayed, that this happened. Now, the rule says that when you have the structure of the main clause followed by the that subordinate clause, that the verb here will always be in the base form, regardless of whether the subject here is plural or singular. We have a singular subject here, he. And of course, on the grammatical concord, he, a singular subject, will always attract a singular verb. And a singular verb is a verb that has s, res, or es. In this case of mandative subjunctive concord, the rule is different. The verb here will always be a base form verb, not a grammatical verb, not a verb in the singular form. So let's come to the options and see the verb in the base form. The first option here is resigns. They recommended that he resigns his appointment as commissioner. Is this the right answer? No. Why? The reason is this verb has an S, which makes it a verb that shows singularity. It shows number. The verb in mandative subjunctive concord doesn't show number. It doesn't show person. Okay, so this is person, and it's also showing number. This shows number, so this is wrong. Remember, the verb shouldn't have an S. Now, option B, they recommended that he resign his appointment. Does this have an S? Yes. Oh, sorry. Does it have an S? No. So the right answer is resign. They recommended, the committee, the students, the people recommended that my father, that my friend, resign his appointment as commissioner. Let's check out option C. Resigned. They recommended that he resigned is appointment, A as commissioner is wrong. Remember, the verb cannot be in the past. The verb cannot be in singularity. It can only be at the base form. So finally, option D, they recommended that they recommended that he does resign. They recommended that he does resign his appointment. This is wrong. Why? Because this already shows number. It shows number. Thus, the presence of thus here makes this option wrong. Remember, the verb in the subjunctive, in the mandative subjunctive expression shouldn't show number, shouldn't show present. Rather, it should be at the base form. And in fact, the base form of does is do. This is not do. So this also is wrong. The right answer here is resign. Now, with this explanation, I believe that you know what mandative subjunctive concord are, and you can use them in your daily conversation or in your writing process. Before we go, let's look at other examples. A few more examples, so we can understand this concept better. All that matters is that you note that the verb in the subordinate, in the that subordinate clause, must always be at the base form in a situation where you have a main clause being followed by a that subordinate clause. Pretty easy. So let's look at this. I pray that God dash you. The God dash you. And we have this option, bless, B, blesses, C, blessed. Let's stop at option D, option C. Right, so is it I pray that God dash you, I pray that God bless you, I pray that God blesses you, I pray that God blessed you. What should be the right answer? Remember, look at the verb here, pray. Pray. I pray is a main clause. That God dash you is the subordinate clause. The subordinate clause. So I pray that God dash you. Is it I pray that God blesses you, I pray that God bless you, I pray that God bless you. Now remember, the structure is I pray. This is the main clause. Here is the main clause. And here, the God dash you is the that subordinate clause. And the structure is pretty straightforward. We have the word pray. Remember from the definition that when you have a main clause, right, that is followed by a that subordinate clause, and the main clause is talking about prayer, is talking about decision, is talking about necessity, is talking about decisions, recommendations, commands, requests, insistence, all of that. When you have those verbs in the main clause, or you have those situations being expressed in the main clause, the verb in the that subordinate clause, the verb in the mandative subjunctive clause will always be at the base form. So that is why I pray that God bless you is the right answer, and I pray that God blesses you is wrong. I pray that God blessed you is wrong. So if you're part of those who send me monthly messages, only your messages, and all you do all the time is say, I pray that God blesses you. I pray that God blesses you. I pray that God does this. I pray that God does this to you and all that. Please stop. You should learn the right thing now. So it is, I pray that God bless you, and not I pray that God blesses you. So I demand that he come. That should be the right thing to say. Another example is, I decided or I requested that he come see me. Not I requested that he comes see me. I requested that he come. We requested that she come, not we requested that she comes. We urge that she does is wrong. We urge that she do. We decided that she talk to us, not we decided that she talks to us. All of this and more are structures that explain what mandative subjunctive concord talks about. So remember, you must say such things, such verbs as pray, recommend, request, command, suggest, insist, and all of that. So that is what this concept is about. However, if you still have any question regarding this concept, maybe there's something you want me to explain better, kindly drop your queries in the comment. I'll be delighted to attend to them any time of the day. And for those who found this class really insightful, kindly do want to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel if you haven't, and share this content with your loved ones or any other person that deserves to see it. See you next time. Bye for now.